I am super excited that you're here. I know you could be anywhere in the world today, and you decided to take about 30 minutes to actually understand how to master the nuances of sales. So I'm going to dive right in because I know your time is valuable. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go for it. And I will tell you though, one of the things that I will do later in this presentation is I'm going to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about who I am. But at the end of the day, if you are here, it is because you want to understand how to master the nuances of sales without confusion and extra work and all of the things that bog you down, right? You're trying to figure out what this sales process is about, what the art and science of sales is. And I can tell you that the nuances that go with sales will take you significantly further than understanding how to ask the right questions, how to put a proposal together, and all of those things. So I'm going to dive right in. Again, my name is Cheryl Parks. I'll get into who I am, what I've done, and why you might want to continue listening in a few slides down the way. But let's go. Okay, first and foremost, you want to shift your energy. I'm going to use an example. I have a mentee, and part of the issue that she was having when we first started working together was she was trying to get people to do things. How do I get them to buy? How do I get them to return my call? How do I get them to respond to the email? All this, how do you get them to do, has to go by the wayside. We are no longer in a buying business economy where you're going to get anyone to do anything. Right now, sellers are as sophisticated as they've ever been. So shift your energy to how can I help them understand the landscape? How can I help them make a better decision? What could I do to provide more detail, more data, more understanding, better questions to help them make their best decision? Shift your energy to that and it will take you far. We talked a little bit about it in the ebook if you actually downloaded that. But at the end of the day, the shift of energy will take you far. If that's the only thing you take from this today, I can tell you the shift in your energy will take you far. But I've got about 20 plus more than that. I think we're right at about 21. So I'm going to keep going. Okay. Something I always asked myself when I was in corporate sales selling a Fortune 1000 is what would I do, right? So what would you do if you were on the other side of the desk or the other side of the Zoom? What would you do? Would you make a decision to buy what you have, to invest, to call you back? I was always thinking from the perspective of what would I do if somebody called and left me this message? Would I call them back? Would it be of importance to me? Okay, so what would you do? Ask yourself that along the way. You can sprinkle it in. You don't have to do it every single time you make a move because you can get bogged down in a lot of that. But at the end of the day, you do want to consider the other side of the desk or the Zoom and ask yourself, what would you do if you were there? Sorry about the noise. Okay, build your trusted advisor currency. I cannot speak to this one with more importance. So 88% of corporate buyers state that they buy from people that they perceive to be trusted advisors. Yet we continue on this path of trying to get better and better and better at selling what we do. If you can be better at becoming a trusted advisor, and I'm going to give you a little bit of like what that actually is, right? Trusted advisor means that you are a fiduciary. You're looking to help your buyer make their best decision, whether or not it means that they're going to go with you. I know that's hard to hear. It steps on toes. I know you don't want to hear that. But at the end of the day, your buyer can sense that you're all about you. I'm all about getting you to buy what I have to buy. I'm going to give you another example. I was working with a prospect and it was a husband-wife team and they were lovely. And at the, money like speed, revenue like speed. At the end of the day, over the course of our discovery calls, I think we had 2 of them, there was another expert that came on the scene. And that expert was significantly more niched than I was in what they were doing. And I had to tell them, if I were going to make a decision to do one versus the other, that would be this expert over myself, I would go for it. Because at the end of the day, you don't necessarily need 2 people trying to tell you what to do at the same time. So you could literally stack it. I decided to step back because for me, that was important to do. But at the end of the day, you can do it however you like. I'm just telling you that your buyer senses that you're only in it for you, and that all you care about is whether you can get them to the end in mind goal of buying, and not so much creating this trusted advisor currency. So the other thing about being a trusted advisor is your buyer will have a tendency to call you into meetings that are the beginning of the process. They'll call you in and ask you for your opinion about things. Something else that has always come to mind on the trusted advisor status for me is that I tend to get flowers and gifts and thank you cards at the end of our process. And that's typically because they know that I stepped out of the way so that we could be better together. The next one. All right, get personal. Listen and think about the conversations. So I know a lot of times in this space right now, we're recording our conversations, and a lot of times we don't want to listen to them again because maybe you don't like the sound of your voice. Maybe you know that you should have asked better questions. Maybe you didn't get the response you wanted and you don't want to hear it again. But at the end of the day, if you review your own conversations with your prospects and buyers, you'll hear what is said and what is not said. So one of the things that I do regularly is when I ask someone a question, and let's say I'm asking about their top 3 priorities, the one that they give me first, I tend to believe is the one that is the most important. I can ask them that, but typically we talk about things that are important to us, and we do it in an order because that's just the way the human mind works. So you listen to what's said, but you also listen to what's not said, right? So it could be that we're talking about them implementing something. One of your corporate buyers, they're going to implement something, and you're getting a sense that they don't trust the process, right? That's what's not being said. Well, there's a chance that they've implemented over and over and over, and it hasn't exactly gone the way that their previous sellers have told them it would go. So that's what's not being said, and those are some of the things you want to flush out. Engage in deep listening. These two go together, right? So deep listening is focusing on body language, right? If you've got the person doing this or checking their watch or looking at their phone and they're just not engaged, right? So focus on their body language and see if you've got everyone in the room engaged. Focus on the tone. Do they sound like they're open and willing to listen to what you have to say? Or do they sound like they're a little bit shut down, right? Also look at their excitement levels. Look and see when they get excited about some of the things that they can do. When do they get excited? When does their box light up on the Zoom camera? When do they go get another person to come into the meeting because they've heard something that's super, super important to them, right? All of those things are going to be really important. And then how are questions answered? Are you getting one-word answers? Or are you getting let me give you a couple separations too. Are you getting, I feel like this is going to be a good process, or I think, right? When people use I feel, that means they're in a different space than if they're using I think. I think tends to be a little bit more logical. Obviously, I feel tends to be a little bit more emotional. And we know buyers buy on emotion first, and then they logic their way through it. So how are the questions being answered? All right, how does the solution personally help them? How does it help them personally, individually, within their team structure and within their business? So one of the things I used to ask is, how is your role measured? What are some of the things that your role has to get done to get like the gold star? Like, what's your North Star for the role? What did you accomplish last year that you really want to be sure that you either match or exceed this year? Things like that. Then you'll get into the personal area of what is important to them. It could very well be that whatever you are actually, whatever you're providing to them, whatever offer it is, it could be that them getting more time with their family and friends and or themselves is the solution, right? I'm looking for something that can make my job easier so that I can move forward and spend more time at home, okay? All right, let's go to the next one. Story sell. I love this one. I love it because it's fun. It's more fun for me. I like stories. I like how stories engage people and bring them in and help them kind of see the landscape, right? So I'm going to give you my introduction right here. And it's a story. So growing up, I literally was the shyest girl in the room. My family had moved from New York to California. And if I was kind of shy in New York, when I got to California, I was debilitatingly shy. I was so shy that literally I would not even ring the bell on the bus to get off the bus. I would just ride along to the next person's stop, get off with them, and walk my way back with my books and my backpack and all the things. At, at some point in my life, I decided if I'm going to accomplish anything, I'm going to have to speak up for myself and change my mindset. Change your mindset, change your life. So I mindset marched my way into another area. And I've got some really great ways to do it, which I'm sure I'll do in another video. But for right now, suffice it to say, I did things like creating a mantra that I would recite to myself. I listened to a lot of my own affirmations that I recorded and would just listen to them or write them down. I think at that time I was writing them down. We didn't even have cell phones then. So I was writing them down and I would read them back to myself every day. In addition, I just started to take notice of like how I felt when I would start this fight or flight scenario. Like, oh man, I'm like really, really shy and I'm fading into the background. What's going on? Are people asking me questions? Or am I expected to speak up? Or am I in my own head saying, oh, you should say, you should say, you should say? Some of us have been there. Okay, so over the course of time, I sold over $25 million and then launched my own sales advisory firm. Our sales advisory is based on basically you being your excellent best in sales conversations. And we accelerate on your own superpowers, which could be that you're an introvert, could be that you're an extrovert, could be that you have lots of corporate experience, could be that you were the buyer before and now you're the seller. We do things like that. So we look at your own superpower, and our goal is to accelerate on your own superpowers and then bring up the areas that need to come up so that you basically consistently can bring in new revenue. In addition, I've coached hundreds of coaches and consultants and service providers, done clarity calls, helped them through, negotiating large deals to the tune of over $500,000. And literally, I've coached hundreds of different types of personalities. It's part of what I love to do because I believe everyone has a superpower, and it's simply a matter of you uncovering it and then accelerating on it. And I'm also in the process to put something on the radar of achieving my AI consultant certification. So from the beginning to the end, I've been in coaching for 5 years official. I've always been a coach in my life. I've always coached teams. I've always liked to coach people. And at the end of the day, it's all about personal and professional development. So I'll end that here and just talk to you a little bit about you telling stories. So what's your story? Why do you do what you do? Why do you wake up every day and work hard as a salesperson, as a founder, as a business person? What's your story? What's the impact that you're trying to make, right? For me, I'm a transformation junkie. I love to see people get a transformation that results in the goal that they had when they came in. That is just the number one thing that crosses my path. I love it when I see it, and I always know when it's going to happen. I know when people are doing the work. I know when they are excited about it and pushing forward and determined. And those are the people that I love to work with. So action takers, investors, personal and professional development, mongers, so to speak. And but what's your deal? Like, what is it that you really want to help your client get to? And that could be a myriad of things. It could be very personal to you, or it could be very professional to you, something that happened in your professional life and you have since figured out a way to provide a solution. Could be something that happened in your personal life and you have since figured out a way to provide a solution. So I'll end this here, but so far, if you listen to two of the things, I would say focus heavily on shifting your energy, and number two, on stories that sell about why you do what you do in the area that you do it in. All right. So I used this the entire time I was in corporate sales. And I literally said to myself when I first started in sales, I said, if someone sees me on the street, I would much prefer that they go, hey, that's Cheryl, she helped us with, versus, wow, That's Cheryl. I remember she came into our office and we didn't get anything we needed and she sold us down a path, right? I think they used to be called wolf tickets, right? So here's the thing. What would you need to do to have your buyer want to give you a reference, a testimonial, a referral, or a recommendation? What does that look like? Who has given you one of these before? Why did they give it to you? So you want to stay in that path, right? I mean, literally, it becomes how can you support them wanting to give you a reference, testimonial, referral, or recommendation? Sometimes people ask for these things. Other times, the buyer actually just offers it up. And let me just say this as well. You don't have to be in a space where you've already given them a result. A lot of times people will give you, it could be around your onboarding process. It could also be like, it was a great onboarding process. I've been through that with other companies and I thought they were just stellar. And I hadn't even gained anything from them, but their onboarding process was really good. It could be that I'm giving a testimonial about just simply working together. I haven't gotten a result yet, but working together has opened my eyes to a lot of things. I'm going to give a referral because I'm midway through the process and I can see that what you know is something that others could take advantage of. So I'm going to give a referral. And then recommendation, whether it be on LinkedIn, a letter, a note, on social media, but recommendations are always helpful. Sometimes you can ask for these and other times just listen for when your buyer is in a space where they're super excited about working with you. All right, let's go to the next one. Your personal brand. This one is also important. No matter whether you work on your personal brand or not, you have a personal brand. So if your LinkedIn profile or any of your social media presence or how you go to market or how you handle sales calls is not defined and built out, that's your brand. No matter it, the brand will speak for itself, whether you've actually put some barriers around it and you've kind of defined it and want to understand like what your ideal audience, what your ideal buyer is looking for or not. If it's an or not scenario, that is your brand. So it's kind of like no decision is a decision, right? So to define and build your own personal brand, you'll basically want to look at an overall strategy. Start with the end in mind goal. What is it you're trying to help your clients accomplish, right? And then, kind of reverse engineer it back and decide if I'm trying to help them accomplish selling over $100,000 for the year in corporate business, right? Let's just say that's the goal. If you want to help them do that, what is it going to take? So it could take being really good at negotiating. It could take learning more about the people that are involved in the companies that they work with. It could take defining the companies that they're going to work with. It could also be around their own brand story. You kind of heard my brand story. So it could be helping figure out like, what is the brand story? And then it could be helping on the positioning, right? So understanding who their ideal client is, what they do for them, what their ideal client looks for, and that kind of thing. Ironically, that's what I do. So, but it's a reverse engineer. So you're taking it one step back, one step back, one step back, because it's easier to reverse engineer something. I shouldn't say easier. It is more effective to reverse engineer something than it is to build it from the beginning to the end. When you reverse engineer, there's a highly likely probability that you will not miss a step versus going from A to Z. If you go from Z back to A, you'll have to be much more focused and give it some thought. Try it yourself. You'll see. You can just do A through G and take yourself backwards from there. And you'll notice that you're going to have to pause and really think it through. It's the same thing when you're actually building your brand. Okay. So remember, whether you have brand, You don't have a brand. Your brand is what others say about you when you're not around. If you don't have a brand, that is your brand. Okay. All right. Be transparent and authentic. I always say speak in why, right? So use business reasons. I was talking to someone, I think it was again my mentee, and she was hoping to have someone sign paperwork for a sales opportunity she was working on by the end of the quarter. And so clearly, salespeople are always kind of focused on, you know, getting their deals in by the end of the quarter, but that's not a good enough reason for your buyer. So my conversation with her sounded something like this. You might want to let her know in an email or a voicemail message that you know she has competing priorities. Because as a business owner, she does. She's managing a whole company and she's got competing priorities for all of this. And candidly, what you're selling isn't it's not a compliance-oriented offer, and it wasn't an offer that necessarily had to be taken care of in the time that the salesperson would like it to be taken care of. So speak in why. I understand you have competing priorities. If you're going to wake up on Monday, the beginning of next quarter, or Friday, the end of this quarter, and sign the agreement, it would be fabulous if you could sign on Friday, right? So you're using business reasons. You're letting her know that you're compassionate about and understanding about her competing priorities, and you're being transparent. She knows you need the deal signed before the end of the quarter. She's a business person. She's got quarterly goals and results that she has to report on. But use business reasons, and you can have a little bit of fun with it, but just be transparent and authentic. All right, set and manage expectations by over communicating. Your investment of time and energy is critical here. Okay, okay, so I always like to do it this way. When I'm in my first meetings with a person or a group of people, I like to understand how they like to be communicated with. Because at the end of the day, for example, do you want several people on one email thread, which means that several people could do what I call spin in circles? Or would you prefer to manage the email thread and kind of push it out to whomever it needs to go out to so that there's a focus, right? Because at this point in the business world, the investment of time and energy is critical. So most people don't want to overexpend their time and energy or the time and energy of their teams. So you'll want to set and manage expectations. How do you prefer to be communicated with? About how often? What does this look like? And I always ask the question, if by chance I don't hear from you over several emails and communication outreaches, how would you like me to address that? Would you like me to just, let you know that I haven't heard back? Or do you want me to just continue? I know you've got competing priorities, so I just want to be respectful. All right, continuous improvement. We're back to us. Continuous improvement. I always say that you should be creating your own curriculum for personal and professional development. How do you do that? You can do it in a number of ways. You could go to university and decide that you want to get another degree. That is great and wonderful. But you could also say to yourself, 20% of what I do, I want it to be based on real life conversations. Maybe another 20 to 30%, I want to be based on learning, which has to do with me going out there and potentially following an influencer. So that I understand really, the path to success. Maybe it's someone that has built the brand that you want, or built the sales opportunities that you want, or maybe they're in the same space as you, right? So then it becomes leading. There has to be a part of you that is stepping into who you're going to be. So you're going to have to find a space where you're leading. Is it at your office? Is it in your business? Is it in your family? Wherever that is, that makes sense and is aligned with your time and energy, I would do that. So I would say 10% should be in that category of leading. It could be that your leading has to do with mentoring. So maybe it's you becoming a mentor, because as much as you think you don't know, there's somebody behind you or next to you or around you that knows even less than you know. Okay, so that learning mentoring scenario goes together. Better humanate. I know that's not a word, but at the end of the day, we just need to be better humans. If you can be a better human, there's a much, much greater chance that it will show through, and the people that you are actually calling on will understand that you have become a better human. All right, proactive communication. I talked a little bit about this, but I do ask, how do you prefer to be communicated with? How often? Who do you want on the email thread? What happens if we fall out of contact? What's the best way for me to understand how I should proceed, right? Things of that nature. But being proactive in communication or over communicating will always set you free. Make it easy to work with you. Little things like this. If you're going to send someone an article, summarize it for them and point them to what's the big deal. The big deal is in paragraph 2 on page 2. And when I saw this, I thought of you immediately. Provide the exact link. I can't tell you how many times I get a link from someone and now I'm digging around. I have to go back and Google something and try to figure out like where I'm supposed to be, because either the link's broken or it doesn't get me exactly to where they need me to be. Speak in your buyer's time zone. Okay, this is a big deal because your buyer is maybe not in your time zone. And so anytime that they get a request from you or conversation from you and they say, yeah, it'd be great, let's talk on Tuesday, and you say 11 a.m., and then they're using mental space to convert it. Let's say they're on the East Coast to 2 p.m. Why not just convert it for them? What does 2 p.m. your time look like? That way, immediately they're ready to go, okay? I always convert to my buyer's time zone so that they don't have to use the mental calories to do it themselves. Discuss what's on the radar to enhance the partnership. So what are you working on for the future? What that sounds like is what I told you about the fact that I'm working on my AI consultant certification, right? That's up and coming. So you'll want to keep things 3 to 6 months in front of you and make it easy to work with you. The best salespeople are people that you don't even realize are salespeople, right? So let me give you some examples. The person who sold you your house that gets invited to the baby shower and the barbecue and the anniversary party, they're a salesperson, but they've crossed the line of being a salesperson over to being somebody that you look to spend time with because it's easy to work with them, right? Those are the types of people that people want to work with. So at the end of the day, it's just as easy for you to be easy to work with. All right, this one goes in line with the buyer's time zone. Anytime I'm sending someone something, including a Zoom meeting request, I make the naming convention easy. So for example, if I'm talking to Jane and Jane sends me, let's say Jamie sends me a meeting request, and the meeting request is Cheryl's proposal. And that ends up on my calendar. When it comes time for my meeting with Jamie, I'm not really going to know unless I can think through like, oh, that's right. This is for this, right? Use naming conventions that mean something to your buyer. Let me give you an example. When I actually set up Zoom meetings, I will say strategy call, proposal call, introductory call, discovery call, and then I'll put dash and I will put my name first, which is people, it's a little counterintuitive, but I'll put my name first plus their name. That way, when they look at it on their calendar, they don't look at it and say, oh, this meeting is for me, about me, but I don't know who's with. And now I've got to click into it, open it, and figure out who it's with, right? At the end of the day, you want things to be smooth and easy to work with you. In addition to documents, when you're naming the document after the person or their company, it doesn't distinguish the document for them because they are the person and the company. So you'll always want to include your company name and their company name and what the document is. You can use dashes, you can use underscore, but at the end of the day, you want it to be easy for them to understand what the document is for. One thought, one ask per email. Okay, there are going to be times we have to outline things in an email. That's not what this is about. When we are first getting to know people, you'll want to have one thought and one ask in the email. Okay, so it becomes you're giving an insight and you like to get a follow-up call. And so you've got one thought and one ask in the email. Sorry about the noise again. Okay, so you'll want to include one thought and one ask. It'll make it easy. They can read the email pretty quickly and then they can reply quickly. Now, to this point, if it's a complex idea, you want to leverage voicemail and potentially video. So you could use a service like a tool like Loom. You could use voicemail. You could send a voice note, a voice message. But if you're uncovering complex ideas, you'll want to go ahead and outline that in not only in the email, but also in a voice message. I was gonna try to pause this for the noise, but I'm gonna keep going. All right, hold on one second. All right, let's go to the next one. Preparation. Okay, this is another one of my favorites. Why? Because I love to be prepared because the more prepared I am, the better I feel and the more confident I feel about the conversation I'm going to have. Let me give you an example. So, what I find is practice doesn't make perfect, it makes natural, comfortable, and confident. And a lot of times, what we can do to get there is we can do things like reviewing their LinkedIn. Okay, so now you're reviewing the company's LinkedIn and the person's LinkedIn, but you also want to review them in Google. And I'll tell you why. For the most part, corporate buyers, people in general, don't always update their LinkedIn when they have written a book or they've been featured in somebody's podcast or potentially they were on a big stage, right? But Google will tell us that if we actually just Google their name. Sometimes it'll say, "Oh, this person just finished a book and it's available wherever." So then you can congratulate them. You'll know more about them. Okay, company website. When I go there, this next area is pretty much what I hit. So I always look at the about section because I want to see how they go to market. What is the conversation they have with their audience? I also go to media, right? Again, what are they saying to their audience about what they do, the results they get, how the community feels about them, etc. So media or newsroom, investor relations, those are great places to go. The one place I really love to go is the leadership team because I love to see where the leadership team came from. Did y'all know each other before you got there? Did you work together in another life? Or are you from YouTube, Google, Facebook? Or are you from brick and mortar? Right? So I always like to get that sense. And then apps and tools, right? So of course you can use a variety of apps and tools, whether it's HubSpot or some of y'all are out here using Salesforce or whatever the case may be. But those apps and tools have integration points where they will actually give you insights for your buyer. Open-minded goals for next steps. So you want to have a loosely set goal, right? In the beginning, I think it gets tighter as we go down the process, but you want to have a loosely set goal for your next step. So when I have the first conversation, my goal is to provide them enough information to make the next step decision, which could be to have another meeting. It could be for me to go ahead and send the agreement over, whatever the case may be, right? So I want to make sure that I am in a space that makes sense and I'm not selling before it's time to sell, but it is a micro decision after micro decision that needs to happen. So know where you'd like to go. Discover where they'd like to go. What do they want to do? What's their time frame look like? How important is this? What's the priority? How many people are involved? Last time you made here's a real nugget. Last time you made a decision like this, like who was involved? How long did it take? What do you think you did super well? What do you think you could have done better? Those are some of the key areas. And then finally, align. So I used to say when I would do presentations, selling to corporate, I would say, I know what our process looks like, and I'll outline it for you, but maybe you could tell me a little bit about what your process looks like in terms of you having to get things approved and or maybe you have to build a case study. Some of those things are super important and they take time. And then I would go back into what it looks like on our side, because our side was pretty straightforward. And then I would just align. So then I would look for points that would be aligned or common. Plant seeds for future along the path. So what that looks like is early in conversation, I typically will say, usually the way this is done is I do an introduction, learn a little bit about each other. Because this is a short call, maybe for the first one, I won't go really deep with you, but I'd love to set up a second call if it looks like what you need and what I offer actually are aligned, right? So they already know I'm going to ask for that second call if we're aligned. So plant seeds for future along the path, plant them early, just let them know what your path looks like, and that if you're in sync and aligned, that you'll be asking for the second meeting. That way, when you get there, it won't feel kind of as awkward or uncomfortable that you're about to say, hey, can we get the second meeting? Discover how they measure success, because success leaves crumbs. So again, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but at the end of the day, how does the company, how does the department, and how do they as individuals measure their success? How does it look when they're successful in their role? What are some of the things they've done in the past where they got huge accolades? What is their team working on? What does that look like in terms of them being successful there? And then what is the business, what does the company look like in terms of being successful in that space? Because the more successful you can help make them, the better off you'll be. And I use the term make them in air quotes because we can't make anybody do anything. All right, that's it. If you want to grow sales revenue, book your call. Here is the link. I will include it somewhere around this webinar, but at the end of the day, book a call and we'll just dive in and see where you are in your process. And if what we provide is something that you can leverage to grow your sales revenue and your relationship, so you can get to the space that you really want to be in for your business, and not working in your business every day, not working in your sales roles every day, but actually working on being the better salesperson, business person, trusted advisor that you can be over time. All right. Again, don't forget to book your call. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Take care.